step back. Okay. Good. I'm going to have you just back into that corner there. You're good. Right there. Now when I back away, she's probably going to move forward, so just, just anchor yourself and hold, okay?
Don't let her advance, just keep her.
Good. For a second. Move forward again. So do you know why she moves forward there?
I'm sorry?
Do you know why she moves forward there?
Because you moved away.
Away from what?
Turn your back to her.
Turn my back to her.
Okay.
Okay. When I keep that pressure on her, she's just grumbling. Alright, so that's tension.
Yeah.
See that panting?
Mm-hmm.
Is because I'm overloading her with stress,
Yeah.
and then this is her venting the stress.
Yeah.
Okay? So, here, if I move the wrong way, I can get bit for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's why when I backed away like this.
Yeah.
And then forward. As soon as I turn, snap it. So, here. Are you familiar with the crown collar?
Familiar, but we never used
You
one.
never use it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm going to step out when you do this, okay? So this is actually probably, try to eyeball it. So we need something to de-escalate, otherwise we're not going to be able to have a conversation.
Right.
Okay.
This should. If it doesn't, let me know. Here.
Yeah. Okay, so there's not like a
Yeah.
button.
So you just go around and push this. Okay. And then you'll clip the leash to this one here. Okay.
And he said it's not the round. It's
So we go here. Pull up. Okay, and relax a moment. Pull up. And then just slowly relax as you feel her relax. Right there. Okay, now start to relax your pressure. Up again. Okay, up. And then you're going to start to feel her relax a bit, like right there.
Yep.
And you're going to relax with her. Right there. Good. And then you can relax. Okay. So, and I have to stand for a bit until we calm her down.
Yeah.
But I'll coach you through, okay?
Yep.
All right.
This is
Hi.
Cashew.
Yes. So here, do you know what your dog's problem is?
She's definitely stressed. We have been saying she's definitely suspicious of everything, that for the most part, she's letting us know in different ways, releasing that suspicion,
Sure.
anxiety, and worry.
I think she's scared and untrustworthy of all new people that she hasn't seen for the most part.
Sure.
And she is very reactive to stimuli, that she's not, able to cope with it.
Sure. Okay, so
She's not trusting of the surrounding world.
correct.
Everything is suspicious and everything is a danger.
Up on your leash, yep, very good. And then just up and hold until you start to feel her relax again. Okay, almost, and then you start to feel the body relax right there.
Her hind legs going back.
Yep. And then you're gonna up again, because we want her to go all the way there. We go, now relax.
Yep.
Good, okay. And I don't want you to think that sit is fixing the problem. You're putting it in a more passive state.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which I'll kind of cover. So yeah, she's overloaded with stress, right? So, when I came in and she's putting out a lot of threat, she's showing her teeth and stuff, right? So there's intent there.
Yeah.
But she's coming from a not confident place, because as soon as I went to touch her, what happened?
She paused.
Yeah,
And
and she tried to hold it, right? She
Yeah.
kept like trying to challenge, and I just stood there, and eventually she said, crap, and started to move backwards. And then I kept moving in. And then I had you back yourself in the corner, so there's no way out.
Yeah.
Right? So that, when we put dogs, so we have like a 60-pound suit that we wear that protects us.
Yeah.
It allows us to put full-on confrontation, because if there was real intent of like, hey, I'm gonna nail you, it would have happened.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I were to turn my back and walk away, that's where I would expect to be bit.
Right.
Not on the
Like she
confrontation
did.
part.
when you
Exactly,
did
right?
that, Yeah.
Because when I backed away the first time, I backed away but kept forward. She didn't do anything. Then the second time when I turned away, I backed away and then turned away, and all of a sudden, I came back into her face, she shut up. I backed away, turned away, right? So she's willing to be big and tough until I make that contact.
Yeah.
And then she goes, crap, right? You're calling my bluff. And that's why she's overloaded with stress and anxiety here, right? Because I did essentially what she didn't want me to do, which was make contact with her.
Right.
Okay? So the good news is from what I can see, there's no real intent to actually bite, unless the right prerequisites are met. For instance, you're walking, she lunges at someone, they turn away. If she happened to get more space to move forward, I would expect to see that,
Right.
because they show weakness.
And that's
So that's
what-
gonna pull out more.
That really is what got us here, because she's been aggressive before, and usually we can like avoid the situation or get out of it, but like there's been a couple times now that she's gotten really close as far as like you said, pass, and then somebody turns their back, not really turning their back, just passing, but now their back is to us, and
Yeah.
And she
she
bolts.
lunges towards, and it's like, in our head, the threat is passing, but clearly that's her opportunity, so she thinks.
Sure.
You know.
So for us, we haven't really been taking her on busy streets,
Sure.
like on Milwaukee, right? We've just been on Logan Boulevard, and she's even, been, when she's super stressed, she's been barking at people from a distance
Yeah.
to just kind of stay away.
Yeah, because the stress levels are so high that even something further away
Yeah.
is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
But then on the other side of the token, on good walks, is when she's sniffed around for 20-25 minutes, and then she's just like, you could tell that she's very relaxed, because she's loose leash walking, she's not, jumping around and needing us to pull us back. And people will come by and she's completely fine, she ignores them.
Sure.
Until the right trigger comes along.
Yeah, but
Sure.
it's
Yeah, but you
literally,
can't.
yeah,
You can't control,
it's a moment-to-moment trigger, and then once it hits, it's tough to get her out of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's not always like it, and at dog parks, when she's completely off the leash, she is completely in her element. No people stress her out because she's free to do whatever. No one's retreating. Everyone's happy and receptive. And we never, pretty much of the 30 times, 50 times we've taken her to the dog park, we haven't really had any bad episodes where she's tried to go after someone.
Sure. And most likely the reason is, so when we put a dog on a leash, so we technically have 4 responses to stressors: fight, flight, avoidance, submission. The 2 main ones people always talk about, fight or flight, is when you have her on a leash, you remove flight.
Yeah.
So that's a leash flight response.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of the behaviors come from, because
Sure.
off leash, if she needed to run,
She could.
it's a potential.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's a big part of it. You guys too hot? I can turn down the heat here.
I'm okay, you're probably sweating from
Yeah,
holding
so-
her back.
You're good
She's
though?
strong,
It
obviously.
would be nice if we
Sure.
turn
So
these
go ahead,
down
just
a
hold
little
her, I'm gonna get up and walk away.
bit. Okay, I got it.
Then up. There we go, and then relax. Good. Yeah, this place is either too hot or too cold. okay?
Classic
And
winter.
then here, once I have a seat, you can then have a seat, she settles down enough.
Okay.
That you should be able to sit down and just keep your leash short so you can pull up and
Sure.
she starts to trigger. There you go. And here, go ahead and just lightly up on your leash. And then actually, so left hand up and then push down with your right hand on her butt. Yeah. Yep, push, push. And, yep. And it's almost, I know it's awkward position. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Now start to ease with her. Down, yep. Is that butt really tense there?
Yep.
Okay, so now have you relax. If she starts to trigger, you'll just always straight up, okay? So here, with the prong collar and stuff, with the flat collar, there's no, it's just blunt pressure. So there's no like negative to it that motivates the dog to want to turn off the pressure. That's why I said let's put her on the prong collar. So when you pull straight up, it puts negative pressure on the dog.
Right.
That helps override the brain. And then when I said ease up when she starts to relax, it's because straight up de-escalates the brain.
Yeah, because obviously she has very strong hind legs, and it's very clear when she's tense, and then it's like, you know, a spring just slowly releasing.
Yes.
She has a big threshold between lunge time and relax time.
Correct.
So,
Yeah. So here, nothing out the ordinary really for me. I see this stuff all the time. This looks like overstimulation, fear response, a dog that, like you said, is overly suspicious. And when things aren't being managed, just keeps going. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other big thing, I'm not sure if we included it in the evaluation, is we can't, because we live in a street side apartment, we can't have our curtains open because every time someone walks by, she barks and goes at it.
Sure, yeah, and that's easier because it's something you just stop.
Yeah.
Okay, like parking at the windows, just don't do that. Outside's a little bit more difficult in the sense that you can't plan for certain things.
For sure.
So what that means is there's a couple ways about going about this. One is I teach you how to handle a dog like this. So like right now I'm already like giving you a few things. It's just like a band-aid so we can have a conversation.
Right.
But doesn't really do anything for her.
Right.
Okay. So what makes me a good trainer is that if I come into a situation like this, I can actually get you to calm your dog down. There's plenty of trainers that go like, let me throw some treats and hope it works, and it doesn't work, and then you can't even have a conversation because the dog is essentially what they were 5 minutes ago. Okay. So here, the prong collar just allows you to get more control so that it can shut down that behavior. The reason why I didn't put it on first is because I need to see what she was about.
For sure.
So when he was holding her back, I need to see her at her worst. So if we had already incorporated the prong, you would have already been inhibiting her behavior.
Yeah.
And I want to see
see
like
the full
at your
Cashew.
worst, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay, because that gives me the idea of where we need to go.
And she's, right now, she's kind of pulling back and even leaning into my leg. So.
Yeah. So here, you had tried a Zoom virtual.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, classic pandemic. We had all these plans to like do an in-person training thing, but the best we could get was a
Virtual.
Zoom version. And it was just very basic. It threw anything as possible. Honestly, I thought it was great because this is the first dog I've ever had. Steve grew up with dogs, so it's like standard basics of sit, lay down, like hand commands, you know, different things like that for us to get started with her. And we adopted her at about 5.5 months. And like, so at least we got some start, but then, you know, early on when we got her, I would say it wasn't so much like what you saw today. She was pretty good, but then I don't know if it's just her nature with a combination of the pandemic and everybody being like kind of, you know, on their toes, but it's just progressively gotten worse and worse, like, and there's only so much we can avoid, obviously.
So this is, it can be a number of things. It can be genetics, and then over the course of time, it just went unchecked and it progressively got worse.
Yeah.
It can most certainly be part of the pandemic. I had clients that had perfectly social, friendly dogs, and then were quarantined for months.
Yeah.
And then the next time they had a guest come over, the dog went after the guest.
Yeah.
You know, because it's created a new norm
Yeah.
of we don't have people coming over, so now the dog's more
Exactly.
suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
for us, starting to run work, so, you know, I haven't had that many guests, so that's so foreign
Yes.
to her. And even with familiar people, just merely people standing up, she starts kind of growling and stuff.
Yeah, she's
she
just
hasn't,
immediately suspicious.
she hasn't gotten overwhelmed or anything, but she's, I don't know, guarding or.
Well, a great example is for Thanksgiving, my dad and my brother were in town. She had met them before. We actually went out of town like late summer, like maybe it was October, just for the weekend, spent the weekend with them in a house in Saugatuck, and she was kind of trying to warm up to them, but was still pretty jumpy when they would like stand up, not even like quickly. Like my dad's 65, but my brother is older than me, so not like little kids running around that you would think would trigger. And by the end of the weekend had calmed down a bit or gotten used to it, but then they came to our place here, and it was like she didn't even remember who they were. So same sort of like barking, growling.
Yeah.
Would eventually calm down, but then again, when they get up from the couch,
Okay.
immediately like.
Yeah, so that's a nervous trigger.
Yeah.
So fear, nervousness, anxiety look very similar, but they're different. Fear tends to want to stay away. Nervousness tends to trigger when there's a change in environment. So like if I just got up and walked away, I would expect that she'd start barking again. Anxiety doesn't settle. It just keeps moving around. Okay, so that's definitely a nervous trigger.
Another thing that I was wondering, or one of our many theories that we assembled, is if she is adept at sensing other people around you, whether it be us or the actual person who may not be a dog person or something, if she could sense them getting tense, if that heightens her her anxiety, right?
So what happens is she already is non-trusting.
Yeah.
And then you get someone who isn't dog savvy, and they go like, wow, your dog looks mean, right?
Yeah.
And they do this. Is now for her, she goes, either you don't trust me, so I don't trust you,
Right.
or she sees the weakness in so like humans with bullies bully who they can bully.
Yeah.
Okay, and bullies are insecure.
Yeah.
Confident people don't bully because we don't need to bully.
Right.
We don't have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
Dogs are like that. So when you have a weak dog, they act tough to those that they can act tough with.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why when I came into her space, she started to back off. And she's
Right.
like, wait a minute, people don't do this to me.
Yeah.
But if she was really intent, like, and like in that moment, she would have bitten.
Yeah.
So that tells me when she comes across confrontation, which is even someone trying to pet her because they're going into her space, she's willing to do so.
Yeah.
She didn't do that, right? Now, if I were to turn and move my back, and I mentioned earlier, like, that's where I would expect her to do so because now I've given her
The space
the
to do it,
opportunity.
yeah.
Right? So just because we didn't see it there in that moment doesn't mean that we wouldn't see it in a different type of context.
For sure.
Okay?
Because like an example is when we first introduced Lauren's dad and brother to her, Lauren's dad was very kind of receptive, and Cashew kind of felt it. But Lauren's brother hasn't really been a dog person, and you had literally moments where I've seen him kind of go like this.
Flinched, basically.
And luckily Cashew didn't charge, but that only heightened her, and then she got into her get back, like bark mode, crazy mode, and that just kind of escalated it. So that's sort of been the theme, is once things are escalated with her, we don't really know how to redirect, or for us when we say leave it or walk quickly around it, or avoiding it is our best defense in those situations. And I've literally picked her up before. Luckily she's never bitten us or tried to bite us. But when I pick her up, she completely shuts down.
Oh, sure, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
She is almost limp. She's completely fine when it comes to that. But when she feels, like you said, overstimulation plus nervousness, that's the reaction they get.
Yep, and it all makes sense. I see this on a regular basis.
Yeah.
For some people, it doesn't make sense, but then once they start to understand dog behavior more, it just clears up things in their head. So, what are your goals with Cashew here?
Not have that reaction.
Okay.
Honestly, I want to have a well-behaved, as in take her, we live right over here in Logan Square, be able to take her on the boulevard and not be worried and have to avoid people. Just more of the basic obedience, be able to trust that she's not going to do something to hurt somebody on a walk. Just, the reaction that you saw. At least that's for me at the most basic level. Because I know a lot of your training eventually gets to off leash,
Mhm.
which I'm like, that'd be great, but at this point.
Your ceiling's
it's
pretty low,
getting
yeah, it's just like.
emotional. It worries me.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, overall, it's really difficult for us to see her completely tune us out.
Mhm.
So we certainly want to get to a point where she's able to respond to us. You know,
Mhm.
if something goes awry,
Mhm.
for her to look to us to say, it's okay.
Mhm.
Or literally again, say, it's okay. And then she looks at us and is able to de-escalate.
Right.
So truly
So
being able
for us to be able to handle
on a
that
walk,
situation too.
to control that and be, you know, on her side, right? Like, as in if there's a situation that stresses her out,
Mhm.
be able to be the ones to diffuse it easily and
Sure.
then she can relax.
Okay.
Because we've certainly seen moments where she completely disregards us, doesn't even look to us for any type of guidance.
Sure, yeah,
and is
she's.
on her own, right?
Sure.
So we certainly want to build out a process where she's, you know, with us, on our side, and knows that, I guess, from a level of trust perspective, that if she listens to us, she's all good,
Sure.
type thing, so,
So you're on the right track, but you're thinking too complexly,
yeah,
as humans do, different humans, okay?
yep,
So when you said to be able to look at us and we can say it's okay, and she knows it's okay,
Yeah.
it won't happen.
yeah,
Because dogs don't understand what it's okay means.
okay,
Okay? They don't understand what anything we say means.
yep,
Okay? By definition.
mm-hmm,
What we do is we create associations. When I say sit, you put your butt down.
Mhm.
So she does not know that sit means to put one's butt onto an object. She
Yeah.
just knows when I hear sit, I do this, I get a treat.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
mm-hmm,
So, but you are on the right track in the sense of like, when she is with you, she should feel safe.
yes,
It's just the way that we achieve that is not how people would expect it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? So we'll talk about the e-collar and the prong collar and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and we'll talk about, you know,
The other things.
Yeah.
And then from a walking perspective, another goal is just to be able to leash walk, because an example is, you know, it's gonna get icy pretty darn soon.
Mhm.
And when she doesn't get her stimulation out, when she's, you know, kind of worked up,
Mhm.
she just wants to bolt and smell everything, and it's her walk. We hopefully wanna get to a point where she can walk by her side versus she leads the charge on everything.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
Because, you know, from my perspective, me being a big guy, right, I'm constantly fighting with her on walks, pulling and everything.
Mhm.
But for someone like Lauren, it's tougher for her to kind of take her out on walks and, you know, feel okay about it versus getting kind of jolted around.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
to
So.
just be more relaxed on the leash, I guess, is a concise way for a goal.
Sure. So yeah. So because that's actually going to be part of the solution.
Mhm.
So I actually just had a case just like this.
Yeah.
Dog's name is Lake. She's a pit. You can find her on my YouTube channel, and I
I'm sure
suggest.
I've watched it.
Yeah, I would suggest, you know, you, after today, you go back and review that video, because that's how I anticipate this working out. Doesn't mean it'll be the exact same, but it's almost the same problem.
Very similar.
Overstimulation, nervous, reactive dog, reactive to everything, okay? And then we were able to flip it in the class. The issue that happened with that particular dog is the owners were too soft, and then they were gradually not as strict with their discipline, so then the dog regressed, and that's just how it works.
Mhm.
You have to be
To stay
strict.
consistent.
Yes, you can't change, like because people think, oh, the dog's good now,
Yeah.
don't need to do anything,
Yep.
but
That was
no.
gonna be one of my questions is, you know, is that essentially like, I mean, you know, I'm sure we'll get to like the actual processes, but like e-collar and prong, like, that's basically like from here on out, more
Mhm.
than likely.
When you need it.
You know.
So like if she's a great dog inside the house and we stop the barking at the window,
Yeah.
you don't need it.
Right.
But when you're on a walk, you need it.
Yeah.
Mainly because you can't account for life.
Yep.
Right? She could be a great dog, everything's awesome, and then someone goes with a
Something
firework.
new happens and.
And that's happened, like I walk my dogs to Logan Boulevard, and it
Mhm.
happened to me twice. Once like in August, and then again like after July, but they'd
Yeah.
already been clear.
Mhm.
My pit hates fireworks.
Yeah.
And I was walking, and then right where the that CTA station is right there.
Yeah.
Right there, I was just curving around, and someone lit up a firework, and my pit went on high anxiety.
Yeah.
And I had no e-collar,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, this is gonna suck, because she was just go
Right.
home.
Mhm.
And at
That's a
that time, I was
busy
like,
area,
I wish I
yeah.
had the e-collar, because then I could have just disrupted that anxiety, and then had her back on track again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I guess another thing for us, which is quite interesting is, you know, I had her out with 2 of my friends on the front patio, 4th of July, fireworks everywhere, completely fine. She didn't react to it, you know. It seems as though certain sounds isn't a big thing, yet the other side of it is of the times when I've walked under the L station and, you know, the train's coming by and she can see it moving. It's mainly movement that sets her off, and then she's like in run mode. Like she's not barking or anything, like she is ready to go, right? Get out. So that's, I guess, another dynamic for her where she's not really jolty for noises, she's jolty for movements.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because it's a big train, right? And she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
So that stuff I don't really hold against the dog, just because we're not meant to have like buildings and trains and cars and vehicles and planes and stuff. But there's something that can be done if you need to with stuff like that. Okay. So the way I would approach this case is we have a number of routes. The more you want to try to accomplish, the more expensive, the longer it's going to be, right? I always like to give people options. The main thing here would be definitely need leash walking, the healing exercise, and you spoke about loose leash. I don't believe in loose leash because dogs are either pulling or they're not pulling, okay? And that in between of like being able to walk with your dog on a loose leash, that little area there is part of her problem.
Yeah.
She needs to be, boom, on that hip, glued, in order for everything else not to matter.
Yeah.
So she's more worried about you than the environment. Okay. But if the leash is just loose, she's still in her own world. You're gonna continue to have reactivity.
Got it.
Okay. Loose leash is something that positive reinforcement trainers have created to get people to think that it's a possibility. More often than not, it's not.
Yeah.
If a dog walks on a loose leash in a loose leash manner, it's usually just the dog.
Right.
That's just how they walk. They're not a big puller. It's more so happenstance than it is like the owner actually did training.
Right.
Because dogs are either on or off. There is no gray area. So she's either at my hip glued to me or she's on her own time sniffing. Okay. So if she's more focused on me, this is actually what removes the frustration of stimulation and the reactivity stuff. Okay. So this is the first thing I always cover with cases like this because I'm not picking up. She didn't give me real aggression. She backed off and shut down and just started growling, right? So had she actively tried to attack the sleeve and stuff, I would have said, okay, we have a problem here because she's willing to go there. We have to correct that, make that not an option, and then we go to the discipline of obedience aspect. And those two things work together. In this case, I think, okay, we're gonna get her to dial down. We're gonna calm her down, give her some structure, and see what it fixes. If we remove all the stress of overstimulation, there's nothing to fuel the reactivity. Because the reactivity is a symptom. The reactivity is a symptom of stress, overstimulation, and suspicion. Okay, so when we dial all that stuff down and we settle her down and calm her down and give her something to focus on, there's nothing to escalate to. Okay, so like here when you're doing the prong stuff, you were de-escalating her, and you just kept doing that, and then because I'm not moving right now, she's able to settle down and relax, right?
She's about to fall asleep.
So those would be the first 2 classes. What happens in those 2 classes kind of dictates how we move forward. Okay. My idea here is you come back and you say, Jesse, holy crap, so much better. And I go, great, this is what we anticipated, right? Then we'll have maybe by the 3rd class where we would repeat this. She'd be standing next to you, I'd come and approach her with the sleeve. Does she do anything? You might see friendly kind of wiggly behavior. So I have a nervous Rottweiler that started training. He's 7 months old, and he just had a 2nd class last week. And he was kind of the same lunging and barking. And I didn't touch the dog. The end of the 2nd class, I go down and crouch, and this was a dog that wanted nothing to do with me. He walked over to me, wagging his tail, and sat down right in front of me. And was just like,
And that's like we say that to each other all the time. We're like, why? Because at home she's obviously like our dog, and she's trusting of us, and she's wiggly as could be. And I'm like, why can't you be like this with like other people?
Genetics.
And, and like it's just for us, it's sad to see like it's like Jekyll and Hyde. Like we get to see the nice side, but then when we're out walking, she's the absolute opposite. So,
Yeah, I get that stuff all the time. She doesn't see the world that you see the world in. Like you go out,
not at all,
and when you see neighbors walking their dogs, you just think that's my neighbor walking their dog, right? Oh, there's a neighbor with a cute new puppy. For her, she goes out and it's just like everything is a potential threat. That's just how her brain works. And there's people like that.
Yeah.
There's people that are more edgy, kind of like nervous, of like people walking behind them and stuff. They don't feel safe, they feel threatened, right? And there's people like me who just don't care, right? It's just how how we're made up.
Yeah.
You know, and it can also come from experiences. For her, it doesn't matter if it's genetics or experiences. It's just that's the way she is. Whatever her background, like if we didn't know or whatever,
Right.
it wouldn't make a difference. It would still be the same approach.
Yeah.
She needs to straighten up and then learn how to handle the world the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be the first 2 classes. The third class would be like, where are we at with her behaviorally? If you're trying to socialize her, okay, to get her to open up more, we cannot make it happen, but we have exercises to help make it happen. That makes sense?
Yeah.
They're very controlled exercises. When you get a dog like this who's kind of that intense, or even a dog that's just is antisocial to some degree, I always tell people muzzle condition. Because if you're gonna ask people to help you socialize her, they're always gonna question why, and then when you try to explain why, they're gonna be like, no thanks, because I might get bit and I'm not gonna do that, right? And I've been doing this for 10 years. It's funny because people will pet your dog with no permission, no problem, but the moment you ask them to pet your dog, they're like, why? Okay? And so having the muzzle on just kind of lets them know like, hey, yeah, we're working through things, but we're taking precautions.
Right, like you're safe.
They're more inclined to say yes and help because they're already kind of aware of
Yeah.
the situation, okay? Even if dog's never bitten anybody before, the moment she starts lunging like that, you have to think that that person is probably gonna retract.
For sure.
And that's, again, where I would expect to see something because now they're giving in to her. And it's normal, right? If a dog lunges at me, my first instinct
Right.
is always to move back.
Not move into
right?
it.
So that's where things become an issue.
Yeah.
When it comes to people coming into the home, that's normal. That's territorial behavior, right? Like you said with your family or something
Yeah,
like
it was my dad and my brother, and she had met them before too, so, you know, I expected at least her to not, like, be surprised when they came, but then once they, like, kind of settled and everybody was chill, that them just standing up wouldn't have caused such a ruckus for her.
Sure.
But obviously, again, all the nervousness.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're moving, you're no longer like, you know, under my control, or like, I don't know what you're doing.
Right. No, and that's all typical nervous response.
Yeah.
So that's something we could cover as well. What we've been doing is, Enrique, he was the young man that came in earlier. He's kind of, he's learning under me. He's learning all like the ways of dog training and stuff like that. And I'm now just starting to kind of educate him on behavior stuff.
Yeah.
Is, you know, like the client I have that's been coming right after you, same problem. But not to that degree. It was more so when everything came out of nowhere. Like if you turn the corner and there was a person there, like the dog would react there, but the dog would essentially walk past people, no problem.
Yeah.
So, but what we ended up doing was I sent Enrique, and I was there via Zoom on the Zoom phone, and he went with the big old suit into the home to see like if the dog tries something, we can correct it,
Right.
see where we need to go. Dog didn't do anything, which is a little bit too suspicious, and we corrected a few things.
Yeah.
We educated the owner on how to handle it. And then, you know, they would simply just muzzle their dog, and when they have guests come over, they practice the exercise.
Okay.
And over the course of time, once they get to the point where they feel comfortable, they may remove that, and then their dog is, you know, under control.
Yeah.
So, maybe 2 classes on the heel, see what that fixes, test the behavior again. If that's going well, then we'd set up something, most likely with Enrique coming into the home.
Okay.
So like I had another case, very similar. We had 2 classes at Oz Park doing the healing exercise. And when Enrique went to do the home visit, the dog was legitimately attacking him. Like, was aggressive. Yeah. So then we just shifted gears and we just did sessions to target that.
Yeah.
And then the guy was having friends come over and stuff like that, and all these kind of similar behaviors that you were seeing with her were going away. So we were gradually making progress on that front with him so that he could have a normal life and actually have people come over again.
Right, yeah.
Okay? But we didn't know that until Enrique actually went to the home.
Right.
Okay? So that remains an unknown because, so up here. And then relax a little bit. Yep, we're off, there you go. And then ease your tension there. Good, relax. There you go. Yeah, because I couldn't test it because we were at Oz Park and I didn't want the dog going nuts at Oz.
Yeah.
But as soon as we hit that 3rd class and Enrique went, I'm like, yep, this is legit.
Yeah.
So then we were working on that. until we got the owner to a spot where he felt pretty comfortable, and he was like, yeah, I can have people come over and think everything's been pretty good.
Right, exactly.
So then, as long as we don't get anything there, and you're like, man, everything's going great, we can walk past people now, or if you're not getting these random bouts of reactivity, she seems less reactive. Her barking out the window, which is the easiest thing to do, is stop and stuff. And I go, great. The next thing I want to cover is recall, which is come when called.
Yeah.
Okay, because every dog should know that.
For sure.
But what I target first is the behavior, because that's the most important thing. Once that's under control, then we start moving forward with other stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if that's taking longer than we anticipated, then we just keep working on it
slow down and
until we get the owner to a place where they feel pretty good. Okay. So I have 6, 9, and 12-week programs. If you're just wanting bare bones, like we just want to get this under control, you're in the 6 class range. Okay. So 2 on the heel, 1 on the revisiting the behavior, 1 with Enrique coming over. And then if everything is good with that stuff, then 5 and 6 would just be like, let's cover recall, because every dog needs to know recall.
Yeah.
Because the behavior stuff is really simple. Once her brain is calm, I expect everything to just kind of start to go away because she's not under so much stress.
For sure.
Okay. If for whatever reason we're seeing her struggle with stuff, then that's where the variable lies, because I don't know how long it's going to take.
Right.
Because it all comes down to how much you work with her, how much you practice, what's going on within the environment. Of course, outside environment is not controllable.
Yeah.
You know, we can do stuff here because we have controlled environment, but out there is not the same as here, right? The 9-week program, same thing, we just have more time to get it done. We can cover more obedience. The 12-week program is all that stuff, plus you get all the obedience commands, and we build up to off-leash reliability if the owner so wants.
Yeah.
Okay, which I understand, like when you get a case like this, people are thinking like, I just want my dogs to just not be like this, right? And I go, well, yes, but you can also get so much more because of the tool.
For
Okay,
sure.
but it's hard for people to imagine that that's possible.
Yeah.
When it comes to your contract and stuff, okay?
Yeah.
So
That.
most of my clientele is rescue dogs.
Right.
And almost every rescue is use positive only. Paws contract has that same spiel on it. My girlfriend, I trained her dog. She showed me her contract, and it says, I agree to only use positive reinforcement. If the trainer tells me to use reverse methods, I'm to return the paws and sign up for blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I trained her dog, and I trained several over years Paul's dogs, right? I spoke with a couple other clients, dog trainers, and they're like, I think it's BS. Like, so dogs are seen as property.
Yeah.
And what are they gonna do? Break down your door and take your dog?
Right. I mean, in all honesty, it's a rescue that's not for profit going to, take out a lawyer to try and get her.
Yeah. The other thing is the behavior.
Yeah.
And you've done the Zoom. You did the positive only.
We did positive.
That's why we're here.
No amount of hot dogs. We've tried.
Yes.
Out
right.
on walks will snap her out of it, and that's,
So yeah, I've trained lots of rescue dogs that say don't do that. One of my clients actually, so after I read your email from Maria yesterday, I had a client who was referred to me by one of my trainers here.
Yeah.
And I asked them, where did you get your dog from? And they're like, Twin City Tales or something like that.
Yeah.
And I asked them, do you remember your contract? They're like, oh yeah, our contract says we can only use positive reinforcement only, blah, blah, blah. And I'm training their dog on e-collar, and he's fully off, he's trained now.
Yep.
So it's really a bully tactic. It's a scare
sure.
tactic to freak people out.
Right. And then to get us to this point where now we're finally seeking it out because it's very clear that positive isn't going to.
And the problem is so they're restricting you, and then you have this dog. And so, are you to have a miserable life with this dog?
Right.
Right? Because that's what ends up happening. Like, I've had clients have dogs, and in their case, they just couldn't find a trainer that could actually fix the problem. Right? So they were stuck dealing with this dog. I had a client that used to walk up and down 20-something flights of stairs because she wanted to avoid dogs on the elevator.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so she had great legs, but she didn't want to walk up 20-some flights of stairs several times a day.
Right, yeah.
And she'd go at 2 o'clock in the morning and stuff, right?
Yeah, off times.
And she was trying to find someone, no one could help. Finally, I came in, and then she was able to then take the elevator, be a normal person, go out at normal times and stuff, right? But that's ultimately what these behaviors can lead people to doing, because you just want to avoid the anxiety of when is this going to happen and what if something happens.
For sure.
Right?
And I think that's where we're at is, we're fortunate our door is right on the sidewalk, so, we have our wait, check the sidewalk, and then go out.
Sure.
And then basically try and avoid everybody on our walk, so that's really enjoyable.
That's not.
But, yeah, so
The other thing is, I feel that, so there are places to find a dog a home. My job is to keep the dog in the home, right? And I've had clients who've told me the same thing about they're like, fuck them, like, let them come at me.
Yeah.
I'm training my dog because this is hell.
Right, yeah.
So, and it's crazy because some places would say, you can't use aversives, positive isn't working, put the dog down. That's actually what it comes down to. Which is, it's like, I don't get it. Death before discomfort is essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just a big middle finger to everybody like that tries to bully people, and it's just not realistic that positive only does not work for all dogs.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so with a case like this, it's really play it by ear. Again, if your concern is we want to get this behavior under control, calm her down, be less anxious, have the confidence in she's not going to blow up, or if she does, that we can address it immediately.
Right.
Right? Because that's the main thing.
Exactly.
Nobody's perfect, right? And so like my pit Lex, I've had her since she was 3 months. She's now like 8 to 9 years old.
Yeah.
In that span of 9 years that I've had her, she's had 5 reactive moments. Like seemingly out of nowhere, because I'm not expecting it to happen for my dog.
Yeah.
But even my dog's not perfect. But 5 reactive moments in the span of 9 years is pretty damn good. Right?
We had 5
So,
like this today, probably.
Yeah, so like here, yes, I want her to be calm, relaxed, we don't get the behavior, but at the same time, I'm teaching you like, hey, it might pop up one day, 2 years from now. That's actually pretty good. But you'll have the control, you'll have the tools to get her back under control and then continue with life.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it just depends on, again, how far do you want to take her.
Yeah.
When I come in, I focus on, again, what I know you'll need, how she progresses, how you're practicing, and like, are you practicing, is what dictates how far we go along.
Yeah.
So I can only take you as far as you're willing to go. Okay? So like the dog I mentioned earlier, it was like essentially a 1-class turnaround. I think her number in the beginning was like in the 60s to 80s. The E-collar goes to 127, just to give you a perspective. Yeah. And then she got better. Then the number dipped. It went down to like 45. But then her reactivity started coming back. And I kept telling the owner, go to 80, go to 80, go to 80. And every time I see them, I'm like, how'd it go? They're like, oh, it was a bad week. I'm like, well, how high did you go? 60. I'm like, go to 80. Keep saying go to 80.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see him for a few months because they took a break to like work on stuff. And then I saw him a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, how's it going? They were too low again.
Yeah.
And guess what? Told them to go back to 80. So that's what holds people back, because they're expecting the dog to learn to be a good dog. It doesn't work that way. She's gonna be a good dog because you're making her be a good dog.
Right.
Okay? So like for humans, we have prisons, judges, jails, cops, but people still commit crimes. You guys drive?
Yep.
Been on the expressway?
Not in a while, but yes.
Okay. Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Okay. Why?
Because I don't have to.
Why don't you have to? It's the law. So you're aware,
Yeah.
right? Speed limit 70, but I'm gonna go 80 because there's no cops.
Yeah.
There's no cameras. There's no threat of consequence. So that's what we call opportunistic behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the dog, think of the e-collar as a cop on a collar. When it's present, she's gonna behave better. Okay. So without it, like let's say in the home, more often than not the e-collar goes away because the dog is a great dog, right?
Yeah.
Aside from like barking at the window, which is we can correct that in a different way.
Yeah.
But outside, if she doesn't have that collar on, there's no reason for her to behave. Just like there's no reason for you to go the speed limit, right? You can get away with it, so why wouldn't you? Dogs are very much the same way. This has nothing to do with my methods. This has nothing to do with my skills as a trainer. It's called opportunistic behavior. Humans do it, and we are actually aware of things. Whereas dogs are just like, okay, you told me not to do this, and you can make me not do it. Okay, I won't do it. That's how dogs think. Okay, she's not thinking like, oh, it's impolite to like lunge and bark at people when they're walking by. Like I shouldn't do that. How rude of me. That's not her mindset.
No.
Okay, so but what happens is you do the training over the course of time. Your application of the tool just goes down. So like in the beginning, you're gonna be using it a lot because you're training.
Yeah.
Then when we get her to a good space, you might find like, man, I haven't had to press this button in like 6 months because she's been so good. But it's still present.
Right.
Okay, in case you turn a corner and something just happens.
Yeah.
In case something spooks her or a train comes by or whatever that you weren't planning, or she manages to lunge and pull the leash out of your hand.
Yeah.
You have a means of regaining
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
even when things go south.
I spoke to, I think it could have been one of your clients, right before it got cold, so this was like a good month ago, when they took him to the arboretum out in the suburbs. Like they were making the dog into a hiking dog, so like they're on the recall stage and
Sure.
everything, and they're like, yeah, we've had the e-collar for a while, we haven't had to use it, but it was literally just one circumstance that I think, you know, they wanted to chase or like
Oh, sure.
go off whatever. They used it and it just instantly corrected.
Yeah.
So that's what you're referring to, right? In terms of like,
Stuff happens.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then yeah, they gave very positive feedback in the same manner that you just said in terms of like there's levels of it, and yeah, it was a method in which the dog became a good dog.
Sure, yeah. You know, and even good dogs, in my opinion, need e-collar because even a good dog can run away.
Yep.
You know, and then people, like, because people only think, oh, prong and e-collar only for the bad dogs. But I go, no, I'm like all dogs, because, so like I have another dog that I train over by Travis Park. He broke his owner's shoulder twice and sent them to the ER 3 times in 2 years
Wow.
because he pulled so hard.
Yeah.
And that's a friendly dog. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's an 80-pound friendly dog. He comes to our daycare now.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody can walk him. They don't want to do anything with him. Now he does everything with his owners because they have control now.
Yeah.
And now it's a pleasure to take him places and take him off leash, because then the owner
And
should go to the park and she spent 30 minutes trying to get him to come back.
Yeah.
And she said she'd be crying because it was just like, come on, this is annoying. Like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Not being able to control the situation
Yeah.
whatsoever.
other questions?
I mean, I think, obviously, like you said, like the first goal is to rein in all of that, and I'd definitely be interested in like moving forward with like the other options, like, you know, depending on how those first 4 to 6 classes go, to continue to use that tool, because at the end of the day, like we've talked about, like if it's something that we're going to be using with her, whether or not we press the button or not in like 6 months, that we might as well utilize the tool to its full potential if she can get there.
Sure. It all comes down to the owner. Because the other thing is confidence,
Yeah,
right? These behaviors, of course, create stress response.
For
You're
sure.
going out and like you're like, what's going on and happened today?
for sure.
Is as you work with her and you see her behavior change, you start to get confidence. And when you have negative experiences and you're able to get them under control again, you gain more confidence. So what makes me a very good trainer is I can come into a seemingly like shit show situation and get everything back under control, because I've done this for 10 years. So there's no like this is a dog bite. This was 10 stitches. The dog was actually just here today for daycare, and this is because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And in the situation, I was able to diffuse it. And a lot of people think like, oh, did you like, you know, the dog's biting you, like, did you like panic and stuff? Like, no, I was like actually completely calm, because the dog was just overstressed. And once I calmed the dog down, everything stopped, because the dog was in fight or flight mode. And but I wouldn't expect, you know, one of my employees to be, as they would most likely be freaking out, because they're like, I've never done this before, you know, I got this, I got a 6-inch scar here from a Rottweiler, I have a bite here from a German Shepherd, I had a chunk here missing from a Red Heeler puppy, I have another bite here from a German Shepherd. So these have happened throughout my career, but I'm just so used to working with dogs that I'm not fazed by it. But for you guys, obviously you're not dog trainers, and this is your first dog, right?
my first dog, yeah.
So this for you is throwing you into the realm of
Yeah.
dog behavior, okay? You're just
Say,
going
not
100%.
every dog is perfect.
Yes, right?
Dog.
So, and it can happen to any dog, I don't go by breed or anything like that, and stuff like that, it is what it is.
Right.
The good news is, this can definitely be put under control. The variable is how far can we push her to be social? Because again, I can't make her like people she doesn't know,
Yeah.
and that's actually fine. What I want is that she's not actively going and lunging towards people, right? Unfortunately, in today's society, the thought process of like, oh, your dog should love everyone and everything, and anyone should be able to pet your dog at any time, is not true.
Right.
I look at dogs as 3 to 4-year-old children, because that's their learning capacity. So I always tell people, because they'll tell me like, Jesse, I feel so bad when someone tells me, can I pet your dog? Or asks me if I can pet your dog, and I say no. And I go, well, if your dog was a 3 to 4-year-old child, would you just let any stranger touch your kid? And they go, no, absolutely not. I'm like, well then, Think of it that way, because that's how your dog, that's the learning capacity, right?
Yeah.
So here, as long as she's minding her business, we're good. That's
Yeah.
actually a social dog. She doesn't need to have to tolerate someone petting her.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was walking your dog and I knew this of her, and I saw someone trying to push that boundary, I would by all means advocate for her and go, do not touch her, because, you know, she doesn't want to be touched. And people, oh, give her a dog smile. Like, no, and smack their hand away because they don't know
Right.
any better. They assume like every dog is friendly and I can touch any dog, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always work that way.
No.
So, but I don't really, here, I'm pretty confident once we get her brain calmed down and under control, a lot of these issues are gonna go away.
Yeah.
And then, you know, prioritizing whether or not you try to socialize her, which the exercises are very simple. They just take time. The other thing is, well, we have COVID now, right? So that's
Yeah.
a big kind of variable there. 2, we're hitting wintertime. So, you know, you're gonna be walking her, but probably not gonna be out there hanging out for an hour and stuff like that, right?
No.
So typically when I get clients, like in the summer, in the spring, summer, fall, they usually regress during the winter because they get lazy, and I usually get like emails and calls come the springtime, right?
Yeah.
So and you guys are actually starting in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Which actually is good because, you know, her behavior is not dictated by how
Weather.
nice the weather is,
No.
right? She's gonna be a brat either way.
For sure.
But at least you'll be doing this work during the hardest season, that everything else should be pretty easy peasy, okay? Questions, concerns?
How early can we start?
So Maria knows my calendar.
Okay.
I don't talk about it because I could think one day is open and it's not or whatever.
Yeah.
So she'll get in contact with you about that stuff. The way my calendar works is like, let's say you do the 6-week program, and you pick, for example, Friday at 3 o'clock, right? So Friday at 3 o'clock for 6 weeks plus 1, so 7 weeks in total. That would be your time. No one could take that time from you, okay? Let's say you travel or you go out of town or something like that, and you have to like reschedule or push back a few weeks. When we hit that 7th week, you've technically used a priority. And Maria will say like, hey, you have 3 classes left, you've used up your priority, and we actually have another client that needs that time.
Okay.
So to keep my calendar going, she'd book them and then tell you, but give you options to move to
Like
finish
other
off your
open.
classes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that really only applies to like times after 5 o'clock in
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday, because those
For
are my
sure.
busiest times.
Definitely.
But yeah, she knows about that stuff. If you have like a rotating schedule, like I have people that have rotating schedules too, we don't put them on a fixed time. They just tell us ahead of time what their schedule looks like. But there's some days where I won't see them for a week or 2
Yeah.
because our schedules just aren't lining up.
Yeah.
Okay, which doesn't affect the training. As soon as you get that
Just more
first
time
class
to
in,
work on it, yeah.
exactly, you just have more time to like trial and error
Yeah.
type of stuff. The collar that she would need is I would put her on the Doctor 1900S Black Edition, and Maria will send you this information.
Okay.
It's the highest powered collar, it's meant for 7-pound dogs and over. The reason why I would suggest that is her size, but then also this.
Yeah.
Okay, so when a dog gets very
Saw.
intense, we need to be able to shut that down, and we need power to be able to do so. Okay. I'd also, excuse me, I'd also put her on a prong collar. This will help you. So in case she ever lunges, the
Right.
prong collar gives you more physical leverage.
Yeah.
Because the e-collar is going to need time to kick in. Okay, until you learn these things, and you can do so pretty quickly.
Right.
Is that the prong will give you just a lot more leverage.
Right. Well,
Okay.
an immediate,
Yes.
like, something
Yeah.
versus like right now, the only way, like even this morning, I literally had the leash wrapped around my hips to hold her back, like, while he was grabbing coffee and I was trying to stand 10 feet away, and she was just like,
Sure. No, why not?
about to take me down.
Not
Yeah,
fun.
so on ice, there's no other choice than to use this
Yeah.
collar, so.
And it's nothing bad. You know, dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
That's how they teach. You know, dogs don't give each other treats. They don't give each other CDD. They don't console each other. They just bite each other.
Yeah,
You
she's
know.
definitely learned a lot dog to dog, you know, it's socializing her for daycare, but it's dog to stranger.
Actually, that's another good question. So she goes through daycare right now, but I know you guys do daycare, so I was kind of curious about like what the process is to, I think you guys do like an evaluation process, because I'd definitely be interested in switching her to
What's your
be-
daycare now?
She's just over at Reactive across the street.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
So-
she loves it, but there's no structure, she's just kind of
Free
just
fall.
excited and like, you know, she exhausts herself, so at the end of the day, she's out like light, but, you know, it's just, I think hand in hand with like how reactive she is, if she can have a more
Right,
stable
consistency.
daytime. I mean,
So the way our daycare works is, so most places are the free-for-all.
yeah,
We don't do free-for-all, or they just take 30 dogs and put them in a small room, because one person and 30 dogs is easy money. We do smaller groups,
Yeah.
but also we reinforce training, so like, you know, you do training, anything she learns, we reinforce here.
right.
So if we saw reactivity, we would correct it and all that stuff. Dogs, especially dogs that we've worked with, have different parts of the day, so there's the play part of it, which is excited exercise. We have treadmill time, or I don't know if you ever saw in the summertime, we do pack walks, where we would take the dogs out for a 45 to an hour and a half walk, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
And the dogs are all calm, walking in a nice orderly fashion. We have duration work, which is the place command, where we have a dog
On like a bed,
like
yeah.
this here, and that's mental exercise.
Yep.
So moving around all day is a part of overstimulation, because there's no cap,
There's no
there's no
off time.
end to it, exactly.
Yeah.
So think of like place work is like, for me growing up, my mom, we would go to church, and as a young kid, sitting still for an hour, being
Yeah.
quiet was difficult, right? It's like mental, like, okay, like, can
Yeah.
I be in this all right? Same thing for the dog,
Yeah.
because especially a dog that's overstimulated, they want to move. So the mental exercise is a different from exercise. It's like now you can't move, you just have to relax for a bit. So they get the treadmill structured exercise or the pack walk, they get playtime, and then they also get duration work as well. So it breaks up the day, so it's not constant overstimulation.
Right.
Plus they get rest time in the kennel. So there'll be dogs playing in the play area, and all the other dogs are quiet in the kennel.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there watching stuff going on, but at the same time they have to behave
They're
themselves.
settled, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then of course we reinforce any training, so like this way the owner
Right.
doesn't regress. Which
Which
ultimately.
only helps us, because I mean, we're both definitely busy, and I can say for sure that like our consistency on training or like focus on training hasn't been perfect by any means. So I think that would only help us, help her, you know, not to say like as a crutch, but just something else to continue
No,
to
yeah, I
drive
understand what
home,
you're saying. No,
you know?
for sure. I mean, the more consistency there is, the better.
Yeah.
Right? So what, if you wanted her to come to daycare, what we most likely do is, at least have those first 2 classes, make sure we get all that discipline in.
Yep.
So I'm assuming you've been taking her there for a while now?
For probably, I'd say at least 4 months.
And how long have you had
3
her
or 4
for?
months. We've had her for about 8.5.
And
We
this-
got her in the very beginning of May, and she probably started going there like sometime late summer.
Okay, and then did the issues start happening afterwards? Or were they already happening around the time?
I mean, I can't even remember. It just
Yeah,
feels
okay.
like she's always been like this, but
Sure.
she was just smaller when we first got her, so it was easier for me to hold her.
Sure.
I mean, maybe.
I was just wondering about the pass off, because that's where we're anticipating. So for instance, we have another dog that we didn't train, that I think doesn't train themselves or something,
Yeah.
is human nervous reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And during one of the drop-offs, the dog flipped out. Now the dog was trained on e-collar, and my handler knows how to use the e-collar, but the dog was also like half her size.
Yeah.
So it's easier for them to shut that down, and then we can take the dog, because that's the only issue, is the pass off.
Oh, okay, yeah, when we drop her off, she's fine.
Sure.
And I mean, that's because she's now used to the people there
Yeah.
and is excited as hell. And I do remember actually like maybe the first month or so we were there, we were talking to the owner, and he was like, does she have a weird thing about men? Or like, just because she, I mean, again, like at a dog park, she's totally fine. Although there was one time I took her to, there's a place down in West Loop called Pet Care Plus that my friend takes her dog, and they have the like open swim thing. So I was like, oh, we don't know if Cashew swims. So we took her there, and there was a taller guy there that made a really quick movement towards his dog, and she had a minor freak out like that, but then kind of like chilled out. But, you know, that situation being there, she did react with another group. That had been the first time that she reacted, like when there were other dogs around.
Sure, gotcha. Which makes sense, right? It's because of fast movement
Yeah.
and a nervous dog.
Exactly.
So that makes sense to me.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, we get dogs that can only come here, you know, because anywhere else they'll bite somebody. So, but yeah, having some structure in her brain first, which is transitioning much more easier.
Yeah.
Because going into new environments is unsettling for a lot of dogs. Even the dogs that we get that are perfectly social, a lot of times the first few days are anxious.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely new environment.
Yeah.
And the owner's like, you know, is it because they don't like the place? I'm like, well, it's because they don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Like, they don't understand. We're going to canine perspective for a daycare day, right? They're just like, where are we at? So, but yeah, we reinforce the training. My employees get dogs like this, and they're perfectly fine. But at least having some structure there will make any transitioning easier.
For sure.
Okay. Other questions?
I mean, we'll think about it in terms of like how the transition is going to work between training and daycare, but
Yeah.
what I was hearing is, would there be a situation that we can do the training program and then keep her at daycare, or is it training and daycare need to go hand in hand?
No, you can keep her at her daycare now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's personal preference. I don't care.
Okay.
But if you want to transition her from there to here, I would do a couple of classes first,
Right.
see where she's at, and then start the transitioning process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood. I just want to see on the process.
Yeah, and we do a really slow introduction, so we do a 3-day evaluation. The first day is just to get her used to us, being walked by us, going outside with us, just learning the structure of the facility. So there is no dog-to-dog interaction. She'll be out with the dogs, she'll see them from her kennel space, and she'll get treadmill time and ball time or play time with a handler. So it's building a bond with her first.
Yeah.
The second day she comes in, we're continuing off of that, and then we're trying to expose her to other dogs, see if we have any signs of tension. So even though she's completely social at her place, she may not be so social here
Right.
because of the new
Different
environment.
environment.
So we have a dog, we have 2 dogs actually that came from another daycare as well. And they were completely crazy at their daycare, loved all the dogs, play. But then when they came here, it took them like a couple of months before they opened up. And the owners were like, why is it? Like, because we're structured. It's not a free-for-all.
Yeah.
So it makes the dog kind of like apprehensive, but then they opened up and they played just fine. It
Yeah.
just took longer than normal. The third day is when we start to pair her off one by one with dogs to see who does she vibe with, who does she not vibe with.
Yeah.
And then after that, we go, okay, cool, like, she may need more time, but she's welcome back. Or we'll say, yep, she's good to go, you know, you can bring her back, she's playing with all the dogs, no problem. Every dog's different, we don't rush them. Because we had like a client whose dog was like a golden, typical golden, whatever, very friendly. And he took her to a daycare, and she was freaked out because they just threw him in a room going, oh, she's got a retriever. And like was overwhelmed by like the 20 to 30 dogs that they put her in with, as opposed to kind of easier into the environment. So we do it a lot slower here to make sure we try to make that transition as smooth as possible. But tension in the beginning isn't out the ordinary, it just requires time for the dog to warm up. Okay?
Understandable.
Anything else?
Well, good.
Can't think of anything else. I mean, just using the prong collar, seeing how she reacted to you. I mean, I definitely expected that, but how quickly she was de-escalated by using that was pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, no, these tools, it's the way it looks, scares people, right? Like, because it's spiky or whatever, but they're not spikes, they're rounded.
Yeah.
It's meant to mimic a dog bite. That's why these tools are around. The e-collar essentially is a bite in the bite. It's not electrocution. A lot of people think it's got like an electric current running through the dog's body. It's actually a miniaturized TENS unit. So they use that technology on humans. They use it for muscle rehabilitation and like breaking up scar tissue. Are you familiar with that?
Before?
Many
Yeah.
times.
So that's an
It's
e-collar.
stim treatment.
Yep, it's an e-collar.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a muscle contraction. So
Yeah,
the
and
people
it literally just like makes your muscles
twitch.
Yeah, twitch.
Yeah.
And it's not painful, it's just a twitchy thing. I think she may need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So.
I can smell it.
Oh, really? Yeah. It might be the stress, but
It's
she's
so-
just like, yeah.
Oh yeah, she did fart.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a miniaturized stim machine.
Right.
Um,
And like for her neck's so darn strong, like we're not really concerned about it's gonna hurt her.
No, she's meant to be bitten.
Yeah.
You know, like if she were getting on a line, another dog would bite her. Like if she did that and my pit was here, my pit would have bit her for sure to cut the crap.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said earlier, dogs don't give each other treats. They don't give each other CBD. They bite each other. That's how they handle things. E-collar is very non-confrontational. You know, there's no yelling, there's no screaming or anything like that. I always tell everybody, go to you said you saw videos, right?
Yeah.
You look, and there's some dogs, if you watch them and you're like, oh, this dog, number is 90, and it's yelping or whatever, right? If you watch the previous videos, we start low, but the dog won't listen to anything but 90, but it's yelping. Does that make sense? Because we have a dog like that right now, his name is Winkles. He's a bulldog beagle mix. He's a tough little dude.
Yeah.
And he won't listen to anything like lower than 80. Okay, but anything under 80, he doesn't listen. Then at 80, he listens, but then he yips. Right? And I told the owner, I'm like, this is a super rare case where it's like you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Because it's either he doesn't yip and he's not listening, or he yips and he listens, but you use the remote less. Okay. Most cases fall in the realm of like the dog is compliant and it's not
Yeah.
vocal. But every now and then we get a case like that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we won't know until we start actively working with her.
Yeah.
But just like with humans, they start low, they work their way up, and then you say, hey, that's too much, and then they work their way down, and they let the machine do its work. It's very much similar with the way that we approach the e-collar training.
Yeah,
Okay?
sounds
Yeah.
good.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
No, I think
we'll take
this
some
was
time.
really helpful.
Yeah, it was very
I
helpful.
mean, as expected,
Yeah.
everything you said sounds right. Right
So
on,
yeah,
Katie.
I definitely recommend going on our YouTube channel, looking up Lake. I have a highlight video of her.
I think that's the one I sent you actually, because it's like on your main page, I think.
Yeah. Yes, where it's like the pit smiling, going out.
Yeah, and I have a coworker, I work over here at Coyote, and
Gotcha.
Todd Pressler, his dog goes here, so I was
Yep.
asking him about it, just like out of curiosity, because I don't think his dog, I don't know personally, but don't think he had the same issues as her, but more
No,
so.
yeah, Pablo was a friendly wiggle butt.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like it was more like wanting to do off leash and have a structured daycare because he went somewhere else and he was always stressed after it. So, you know, I've heard good things from the few people
Yep.
that I've
Yeah,
known.
and you guys get 10% off our in-facility services like daycare and standing
Oh, okay.
and all that stuff. Yeah, you get a Coyote discount. You just make sure that to mention it, and my
To
staff
Maria,
make sure
yeah.
you get the discount stuff.
For
Okay.
sure.
Cool.
I think my next client is here.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get up, just have a hold on her. She might trigger.
Yep.
I'll let you go back to your normal setup. I'll have these guys come in, and then I'll have you guys come out. Okay.
Okay. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Good girl.